Today we're going to talk about free and clear properties, how to owner finance those, because simply, most frankly, it's just the most simple form and most pure form of owner financing that there is. The free and clear analysis is going to teach us everything that you need to know about how owner financing works without mixing in a bunch of the confusing parts about underlying debt and buyers and all that kind of stuff. We're just going to learn the pure mechanics of what this is. Free and clear owner financing means that you don't have any bank involved at all, okay? So let's say that you own a house, you paid cash for it out of your back pocket, and then you want to owner finance it to somebody. That's a free and clear owner finance deal. The math is much easier. I'm a simple man, so I need simple math, and this is going to make it really nice and smooth as we transition into understanding where these numbers come from. And then the home value that we're going to assume on this deal that we're going to look over today is going to be an ARV of $100,000. I like using $100,000 because when I throw percentages at you, you just take whatever number I said and add 1,000 to it. If I say, hey, it's going to be 75% of $100,000, well, it's a $75,000 amount that I'm looking for. Sadly enough, that is something that a lot of people that I've taught don't quite grasp. So let's just, again, $100,000, whatever the percentage I say, add 1,000 to it, that's the right number. The 10b2 financial calculator. Now this is something that you've got to go out and you've got to get. This is the lifeblood of our industry. This is something that's going to be available on iTunes and Google Play. Now, the 10b2 is the one that I have chosen to use. It's going to be the one that I'm going to show you screenshots of. I suggest that you get this one because I've worked a lot of them, and I have my reasons for liking this one, which I will get into in our 10b2 calculator explanation video and tutorial. So I do want you to watch that. I do want you to figure that out. But you can use a 12C, you can use physical ones, whatever. Any financial calculator should work. But for the sake of just consistency, let's go with the 10b2. Like I said, I've got my reasons as to why I like it. You can get it right now on iTunes or Google Play. It's $6. It's $5.99. I tell you can get into this business without any money, but hey, you got to spend money to make money, right? If you can't take the $6 right now to buy an app, maybe now's not necessarily the best time to be talking about buying houses, but you can do it. I just recommend having at least a little bit you can set aside for an app. And like I said, this is the lifeblood of our business. The 10b2, I've gotten to a point where I can be having a full conversation with somebody, completely comprehending what they're saying, but all the time, I'm just typing away at this calculator, trying to get an offer for them, and that's where I want you to be. And in order to get there, you're gonna have to practice. You're gonna practice, practice, practice. I literally want you to sit down with a piece of paper, just like I did whenever I was getting into this, and write down a scenario and say, what is a $100,000 loan at 9% for 30 years? What's my payment? What if my payment was $500, what would the percentage be? What would blah, 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 blah. Just write it down, just go through the scenarios until this is like the back of your hand. But again, I do have a tutorial video on the 10b2. I highly recommend that you look at that because there are some kind of behind the scenes things that go on with that calculator that make this a great negotiation tool when you're even sitting in front of your seller. Full disclosure, I don't own any part of this app or anything like that. I just like it, I just use it. Okay, the 10b2 financial calculator. It may look a little confusing. Obviously, well, yes, it does look a little confusing, but what I'm going to tell you is the only thing that matters is that top row. That top row is the only thing that we care about, where it goes from N to FV. Other than the numbers, that's really the biggest thing for us. So let's kind of go through what those are real quick, and then we'll skip on into the rest of the analysis, and you can watch the 10b2 video for specifics on it. But N stands for number of payments. Number of payments. It does not mean that you're going to put 30 in there if it's a 30-year note. It means you're going to put 360 in there because there are 360 months in 30 years, okay? The next one is I/YR, that is interest per year. Just as simple as that. One of the reasons I like the 10b2 is that you can just type in whatever the actual interest rate is. If you're charging 6.5, 6.5, goes in there. The next section that you're going to have is PV, which I'm going to call principal value. Really, in reality, the PV stands for present value when you're talking about financial calculators, but for our terms, for our understandings, principal value just kind of makes sense for us. The next one is going to be PMT, which stands for payment. Payment, that's a real easy one. What's the payment going to be? Now, the trick is the payment is always negative. On this calculator, always the payment is negative. I need you to repeat that for me right now. The payment is always negative. Okay, well, yeah, I know that you just sat there staring at the screen, scoffing. He's not going to tell me what to... But I guarantee you, when you start messing things up on this calculator, that's going to be the thing that messes you up. 9 times out of 10, when there's an issue, it's because somebody didn't put negative in the payment. So just keep that in mind. If you're running into a problem, first thing that you want to check on here is, did you make your payment negative? The reason why is it's a financial calculator. It's an outgoing payment. It's leaving you. That's why it's negative. And then the last section is FV. FV stands for final value. Final value for our sake is going to be really easy because it's always 0. In other words, at the end of this loan term, how much is the loan going to be, right? So since we're doing what's called a fully amortizing loan, which means that we are paying from the beginning and we're paying it down all the way down to 0, that means that our FV is going to be 0. At the end of our loan terms, we will owe nothing left to the bank or whatever. So let's look at this example. Let's say that we own a house free and clear. You're the investor, you've got a warranty deed on this house, so you own it free and clear. If you're gonna sell it with owner financing, it's as simple as this. You're going to put that warranty deed is going to go to your buyer, so they become the owner of the property. And the buyer is going to give you a deed of trust. You're going to sign a note with the buyer, right? So they get the warranty deed, and then they've got a mortgage. But that mortgage goes to you. You're selling your property on payments. That's what the owner financing side is. You're selling your property on payments. So buyer comes in and says, hey, I'd like to buy this house from you for $100,000. You say, that's cool. You give me $10,000 as a down payment right now. I'll give you a loan for $90,000 and you can have the house. They say, cool. So you sign the house over to them, which gives them a warranty deed. That is the warranty deed that gives them ownership of the property. In return, you're going to get a note and deed of trust signed between you that says, hey, this person owes $90,000 for 30 years at 9.5%. And that note is what defines the terms of the loan. The deed of trust is going to say, hey, if this buyer doesn't pay it, I get to foreclose and take the property back or go through the auction process and get it sold that way. That's as simple as that. That's owner financing. That's owner financing in a nutshell. So let's look at a little bit of an example with some numbers to it. So let's assume that we own this house free and clear. We're going to sell it for $100,000. We're going to sell it at a 9.5% interest rate. We're going to do a 30-year term on it. And now we need to know what the payment's going to be. That's going to be the whole key to this, right? As you'll hear me mention in other videos, the payment is what dictates everything in this world. Much like a lease on a car, buyers want a payment to be reasonable to them. So what we're doing is we're looking at what the payment would be if it was a rental, and we're comparing that, and we're making our payment PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, HOA included, everything included, is going to be the same as it would have been to rent. But we need to figure out what that is a lot of times, and that's where our trusty, handy calculator comes into play. So let's look back over here at our 10B2. If you haven't already downloaded it, I need you to go, as long as you're on YouTube and not using your phone, go download it on your phone right now. If you're on your phone, watch this video, because nothing is more important than me right now. But download it eventually, come back, watch this, and work through these answers with me, because I want you to get used to typing all these buttons in and really knowing your insides and outs on this calculator. But let's look at it here. We've got a line of that top row, right? Now, for this calculator to work, all we need to know is we need to know 4 of the 5 items. If we know 4 of the 5 items, that calculator will solve for the 5th one, okay? One of the nice parts about how this works is, like I explained to you a second ago, for our sake, we're doing 0 in the FV, always, because we have fully amortizing loans that we're working with. The only time that you wouldn't put a 0 in the FV field is if you're doing a balloon note, okay? That's when you might have something, a number to put in there. If say you're amortizing a loan, in other words, you're making the payment as though that loan was going to get paid for 30 years, but you've got a feature in there called a balloon, which says, hey, okay, I'm making the payment as though it's going to get paid for 30 years, but in 5 years, whatever's due at that point in time, that entire principal amount that's due in 5 years, I'm going to need you to pay that off in one fell swoop. That's a balloon. That's how balloons work, right? But we're not doing balloons. I discourage balloons. Watch our Dodd-Frank video. Watch a little bit more on the WRAP video so you can understand why I stick away from balloons. But one of the big reasons is just regulation. It's just harder to get the protections in court that we want if there's a balloon feature in there. Now, if you're doing a loan like a hard money loan, that's a commercial loan, that's something that's between 2 businesses, it's you and an investor, that's okay. Balloons are fine in commercial loans, but when you're doing a consumer loan, something that falls under Dodd-Frank and consumer protections, you want to stick away from the balloons.